Well, hello everybody, and welcome to another episode of We Watch Shudder. My name is JD. Who's here with me?
It's also JD.
Oh my God, that's how did that happen?
I don't know. There was a terrible chemical reaction, and now I have been transformed into the undead, aka JD. I guess.
Oh,
Just
was it
kidding. It's Michelle. Did I
some?
scare you?
No. Well, you confused me. I don't know. Are
Good.
fear and confusion basically the same thing? I think for some people they definitely are.
For me, absolutely. When I'm confused, I'm just
Absolutely.
scared, but I'm always confused, so I'm always scared. And
Yeah,
life is just one big horror movie.
sounds like a good time to me.
It is.
Guys, thanks for tuning in for another episode. If this is your first time joining us, thank you so much for joining us. It's called We Watch Shudder because that's what we do is we watch stuff on Shudder, and that's how we started this thing. However, today we are not talking about something from Shudder because Shudder doesn't have anything new for us to watch today, and we got a special request. Who requested this, Michelle?
John
Michelle,
Humphreys, I think.
I
I
ask you
know
this
I
every
should.
time we do a request
I,
episode, and
I
the,
should
the
hang on.
reason
Was
I
it?
keep
No, this
asking,
was Luke. This is Luke.
this
Hang
is
on.
Luke.
This is Luke.
The
I want to
reason
say 100%. Nope,
I keep,
Kyle. Damn
I
it.
she's Kyle is just like, God damn it, Michelle, it was me, it was
I
me.
know.
The only reason
I'm
I
like,
keep
it's a
asking her is
four-letter.
because I
Yeah.
know she didn't bother to find out ahead of time.
I have it written down. I did not have the file open. I was too busy stressing out about the IMDb description and whether it was too spoilery for a movie
Sure.
that came out 38 years ago.
What is that movie, Michelle? What are we talking about today?
Oh my God. We are talking about The Return of the Living Dead, requested by
Yes.
Kyle on Instagram, who is the reason I have Letterbox now, and I'm obsessed with Letterbox, and I have not forgotten who you are as a person. I just forgot what movies you want us to watch. I'm so sorry. Please continue listening. I appreciate you.
Yeah, I especially appreciate you because, yes, as Michelle said, we are today talking about the well-known schlock zombie comedy classic, The Return of the Living Dead from 1985. This movie came out literally within about 2 months of Reanimator, and goddamn, I wish I had been old enough at the time to really understand how great that 8-week period must have been. But clearly, I enjoy them. I referred to it as a classic. I at this point, there's no reason for hiding. But yes, the Return of the Living Dead. Michelle, I don't remember. Had you seen this before we did this episode?
I was not positive if I had or not. I do have a T-shirt from it, but I wasn't
Nice.
positive if I had seen the movie. And then when I watched it, we will just say that there is a certain dance number that came up, and I went, "Oh yeah, I've seen this." Because how could you
Well,
forget that part?
everybody who has seen the movie knows exactly what scene you're talking about, of
Maybe they're
course.
like me and they weren't sure if they had seen it though, and then they get to that dance number and they go, "Ah, yep,
Oh,
okay,
yeah, that's
yeah,
definitely the one.
yep."
Yeah, I of course have seen this movie a zillion times. I have no idea how many times I've seen it, but it's a lot. Not just like I don't consider myself an expert in any way. I'm not a well-educated historian. But at least for me, this is kind of ground zero for that shift into comedy zombies, right? Like there are so many things in this movie that and not only is it one of the first, but it just nails so much along the way. I'm getting ahead of myself. Do you want to summarize the movie for people? I know you spent some time looking at the IMDb description. Is it too spoilery for
I think it's okay.
1985's The Return of the Living
I
Dead?
I think it's okay. So the IMDb description is when two bumbling employees at a medical supply warehouse accidentally release a deadly gas into the air, the vapors cause the dead to rise again as zombies. The return of the living dead.
That's
JD, do you want to tell us your spoiler-free comments and
my
thoughts and
spoiler.
ratings? Because
I've
I mean, you're
already
kind of there.
I already jumped to look. My spoiler-free thoughts are this movie's fucking rad, right? Like it's right in my wheelhouse, of course, being Like I was 5 years old when this movie came out. I think I was about 9 when I saw it for the first time. Even at that age, like you could tell there was a difference between this and other horror movies I had seen. But it still felt like one of those things where, like, man, if my mom knew I was watching this, she'd be real mad. But it's so ridiculous. It's so much fun. It's a legend for a reason. This of course is a Five Skull movie.
Oh, okay, a 5 from JD.
Yeah, this is a perfect legendary film.
Hmm. I think I'm not missing something. What's the word I'm looking for? I don't have the nostalgia factor,
Oh,
unfortunately,
sure,
in
sure.
my case. So this isn't like a legendary thing. It's a thing that has existed and I was aware of and I didn't really remember until rewatching it. And then it's just like a vague memory of like, oh yeah, I've seen this before. What I really like in this movie are the parts that are horror. What I like a little bit less is surprisingly the comedy. And I
Get
know
the
that this
hell
is
out of
like, no, I'm
town.
serious. I know the jokes just I felt kind of meh about it. I really like the horror parts of this, oddly enough. I think there's a lot of horrifying stuff that goes on. There is some stuff that is very funny, but you are a huge fan of slapstick, and a lot of this is
I
kind of like
am. Yes, yes.
the
This is
yuck
very
yuck yuck
schlocky.
kind of
This
humor.
is yeah.
Yeah,
It's
and
cheesy
it's
as
not my
all
kind of
hell.
humor. Exactly. So, I appreciate what it did for the genre. I know that it made a huge impact on the world and zombie lore and everything. As a viewing experience, please don't be mad at me. I'm giving it a 3.
Oh my God,
I know. I'm
Michelle.
sorry.
Michelle, I maybe should have warned you about this
Oh no.
before we recorded this episode, but
Oh no.
there's another. I listen to other horror movie chat shows because I'm a fan of horror movies, and also I do one of my own, so I want to keep my ear to the ground on what's going on. There's another horror chat show that I listen to. I'm a huge fan of. It's called Werewolf Ambulance. With Katie Werewolf and Alan Ambulance are the hosts. And they've been going for like I think 8 or 9 years at this point, and Return of the Living Dead was one of the very first episodes they ever did. And then they did a recap episode way toward like several years on. And here's what I need to tell you is Katie Werewolf expressed a rather meh opinion of Return of the Living Dead as well. And she was shamed and tormented for years by people who heard that review and were just like, what what's not to love? Anyway, I should have just given you that historical context. We don't have nearly the number of listeners that Werewolf Ambulance does. Shout out, guys! It's a great show. Go check it out. But man, I'm
Okay.
honestly
Well,
worried right now about what's going to happen to people's opinions of you as a horror fan.
well, first off, I have terrible movie opinions. We know that. We know that. So maybe in the case of Katie Werewolf, it was a surprise that people thought that she would love all the classics. In my case, they're like, yeah, Michelle doesn't like that. Of course not. She gave Saw a 5. Like, I have bad opinions on things. And if you like the classics, I hate them. That's our dynamic. As long as one of us likes it, we're okay.
Oh
Also,
no.
just in case there are people out there who are going to bombard us with hate mail, I gave it a 5. Love this movie. Perfect score. It's great. It's so good. Please don't send me emails. I'm a very fragile human being.
No, it's all good. It's all fair. 5 and a
You
3
guys,
gives
if
us an
you're out there
average
and
of
you're
a 4.
upset, if you're upset, just know I have bad opinions. I love
Also,
Drake.
also,
I love Drake. I know I have bad opinions.
frankly, if you're out there and you're upset, uh, maybe maybe do some self-examination. Perhaps have that conversation with your therapist if you have one. If you don't have one, maybe consider it. Because man, you should never ever ever let the opinion of some other jackass influence your day. Oh man, what a terrible choice that is you're making. Anyway, we're 10 minutes into this
I
episode.
have
We've
a
barely
question
talked
though.
about the movie.
I have a follow up question about Katie Werewolf because
Okay.
I wasn't familiar with the show. Did she go back and watch it and then give it a 5 and everybody let up, or did they just eventually get bored?
No, see, a big part of it is when they started the show, she had seen some horror movies but wasn't a huge fan, whereas Alan
Ah.
was very much like me, a lifelong fan even from childhood. And so it was an early episode, and she didn't have a lot of context for things. And then they revisited it several years later after she had seen literally hundreds of other movies and having more of some experience and some context. She had a little bit better opinion of it. But yeah, that's
I was curious what my fate would look like. In my case, I know a lot about horror, and I like the horror part where it doesn't work for me as the comedy. So you know what? If you're a horror fan, I'm right there with you, fam. I also like the horror parts. I don't like slapstick very much.
that's fine. That's
So there, come at
fine.
me, comedians.
All right.
Comedians are gonna be like, nah.
I don't know where Michelle watched this. I saw it
Uh,
on Tubi. If you don't mind seeing it with some ads, you can watch it for free on
yeah, I think
Tubi.
mine was 2B too. It
Uh,
was someplace
uh,
free.
I mean, it's obviously it's going to be available a zillion places for a few bucks to rent it. If you want to see it, if you haven't seen it, guys, especially if you like schlocky, like if you like Reanimator, if you like Evil Dead 2 and Army of Darkness, this is in that say I think it's more schlocky, cheesy than say Reanimator. And also somewhere between Evil Dead 2 and Army of Darkness, if that registers with you in any way at all. But I can't recommend strongly enough if you haven't seen this. Fix that. Change your life. But now, Michelle's just sitting
End
there.
of episode. I know. I didn't know at what point like it transitioned to me what I should
No.
do. I'm just in my head about like, oh my god, people are gonna send me letters,
Here's what
angry
I-
letters. I'm looking
See,
forward to it. Nobody writes me.
Peek behind the curtain. I promise we're going to talk about the movie in depth in a minute,
Oh,
but
no.
we're really stream of consciousness-ing this. Peek behind the curtain. A lot of times what happens is I have this idea in my head of like a super smooth, cool transition point coming up, and I build it up in my head in such a way where I'm just like, she's obviously going to understand exactly where I expect her to pick up on this. And then I realize that this perfect moment exists literally only in my head, and there's no way at all that you could possibly know that I have this whole rhythm that I'm expecting.
You just described every improv show I have ever been in. Of just like they're clearly gonna nope. Okay, awkward silence. Oh no.
Yes,
okay, I guess I'll keep
and,
talking.
I'm gonna leave
Yes,
now.
and should we get to the spoiler section
Yes.
of this movie?
Yeah, guys.
Okay.
If you don't want
Return of the Living Dead.
spoilers, stop now. Michelle,
Yeah.
please
Yeah.
do us a favor and freestyle recap the plot of this film.
Okay, so there are two people and they work in a warehouse and they have medical supplies.
You
and
need a medical supply. Did you see that was its name?
I
That's
did.
so
I
great.
did.
You
Yeah.
need a
It
medical supply.
Immediately set me up for the type of movie that
yes.
I was gonna be.
I'm sorry. Please continue.
Oh, it's okay. It's just, oh man, it starts you off right there, huh? So there's two guys. They work in a medical warehouse. And then the one guy, he has friends. They're gonna come hang out with him. But first they're gonna go hang out in a graveyard. And then the one lady, she does a she does a thing where she talks about how she's very afraid of being eaten alive. And then she takes off all her clothes, dances in a graveyard. And it's pretty much like one of my favorite movie moments of anything that has ever been created from the 80s. Pretty great. Don't remember much else about the movie. It just like that. Five stars. 5 skulls for that section alone. And then the two guys who are working the medical supply place, they break something. I forgot what because it's been a couple days since I watched this movie. But then there's a chemical and it gets let out, and then the bodies that were dead are no longer dead, and that includes half a body of a dog. It's pretty fucked up. A bunch of butterflies that were pinned to like a taxidermy wall. That's pretty fucked up. And then also humans. And then they go next door to the guy and they're like, you owe us a favor. And he's like, what's the favor? And they're like, can you cremate this person? And he's like, I don't I don't think I like the idea. And they're like, please do it anyway. And then they do it. And that's how you destroy the body. But it's also how you keep the zombies spreading. So now they're just like in this circle of like, in order to destroy the zombies, you have to make more zombies. Some weird shit happens. At one point, the naked lady, she's dead, but now she's undead, and now she's sexy walking and killing. And you know what? She deserves an award. I really enjoy that lady. I read up about how the casting worked for her, and I just 5 skulls for her, 3 skulls for everything else. Return of the Living Dead. The end.
You missed the greatest capstone at the end here, Michelle. Do you mind if I
Yeah, go for it.
I encore or tag on? So the
Go
best
for it.
part is so finally there are so many zombies and shit's so chaos that they don't have any idea what to do. So they decide they're gonna call the phone number on the side of the barrel that the zombie gas was in, and they contact these military people who have been looking for these barrels for 14 years, and they just immediately fucking nuke the town. But then nuking the town throws all that junk from all the dead people into the air, and they start making even more zombies all over
You know
the
what?
place.
That does sound like an important plot point. I should have included it. But all I started thinking about was the naked lady as a zombie. She just fascinated me.
Linnea Quigley is definitely a standout element in this film. You are not wrong.
Here's the thing I read about her. I was just reading some like quick little tidbits about this movie afterwards because I was like, what did I just watch? Because like I said,
Were you
I have
reading
this
about
memory that
Linnea
I've seen
Quigley's
it.
tidbits?
Kind of. They almost gave the role to somebody else, but then she said she would get fully nude, so she got the role. You know what? I respect that.
Okay, as long as we're look, this is a well-known scene. Everybody who's seen this movie is well familiar with it. Linnea Quigley, who plays Trash. First of all, she's like
those names. The names are so good.
Oh, that whole gang of so-called like they're all just like hilariously incorrect punk stereotypes. Like
my favorite name is Suicide.
Yeah,
Trash and Suicide are over there.
Right. Here's what I love is like she's just sitting there in the graveyard and just all intense. She's like, "Do you ever fantasize about being killed? Thinking about all the different ways to die?" It's so like she just leans into it, right? Like just fully fucking committed. Absolutely hilarious. And then of course she gets into the she talks about how she thinks the worst way to go would be to be like eaten alive by a whole bunch of old men, and then of course that's how she dies at the end towards the she gets eaten alive by a bunch of super old men, really, when you think about it. But that brings us to the scene where she dances nude on top of the crypt in the graveyard. And she is nude, except she is wearing some kind of weird prosthetic, I don't know, like privacy underwear thing. She looks like a goddamn Barbie doll. It's so off-putting. Like it looks like she looks like Marilyn Manson in the Dope Show video from like 2001 or whatever it was. Did you know that reference, Michelle? Anyway,
it's really
just
funny
so
that
goddamn
you just
weird.
Quick side note, I have been coming up with a We Watch Shutter drinking game.
Oh, God.
And somebody would have had to take a shot right there because it would be you making an obscure reference and then asking if I know it, and I don't. They would have just been able to take a shot. Good job, listeners.
Here's another one.
Drinking game.
Here's another one you should add is whenever Michelle talks about something that was massively popular as an obscure reference.
Well, yeah, that's fair.
Anyway,
what is it? I have something similar to that on the list.
And here, it's just the most. It adds just a level of off-putting to that scene that is just like this is perhaps the least sexy naked chick in an 80s horror movie scene ever. It's just
Google
so
what you were talking
weird.
About. I had not noticed the Barbie doll crotch, and now
You didn't?
that's
Oh
upsetting.
my, yes!
No, I'm more like took in the essence of a naked woman and did not closely inspect said naked woman and did not realize there were some shenanigans to be had.
Oh, well, let me tell you, when you're like an 11-year-old boy watching this movie, you're looking to see whatever you
Yeah.
can see, and oh my God.
Yep.
Oh,
Yep.
it's so weird and just so bizarre. And then like later she's just standing there naked next to Suicide, just full on manhandling his crotch. This poor guy. He's like, I gotta just maintain my composure through this whole thing. It's just it's fantastic.
I don't know why they even had anybody else in this movie. It should have been her playing all
Just
roles.
just Linnea Quigley being trash for trash the character, not being trash. Oh my God.
No,
She's fantastic.
Trash the character because she was great, and I would have liked all of them to be not even Linnea Quigley trying to be the other characters. Linnea Quigley as trash as all the other characters.
That would have been
in this movie.
fantastic. Michelle, I have to know because you did mention it briefly there. Not having the strong familiarity with this movie, and all, like, even when you realize that you had seen this before because of that scene, I imagine a lot of it was still just might as well have been your first time watching it. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so here's my question for you: How exactly, when they dropped it on you, did you respond to the phrase "split dogs"? Just split dogs. What the?
Yeah, I didn't know how to react to that because here's the thing about this movie is if they had taken out all the comedy, I probably would have really loved it because it's very upsetting. And I like being upset. It's just not my style of comedy. And so that didn't click for me. But like Split Dogs, I felt so terrible for that thing.
Well, sure, yeah, but
It's so upsetting.
I've seen, like, first of all, the fact that they're like, oh yeah, those animal anatomy things that you see in veterinary places, that's a real dog just cut in half and put on display. But also,
Yeah, I don't think that's accurate.
just the first of all, there's something about just the phrase "split dogs," and he just throws it out so casually. The guy who plays Frank is so great. He's like, "Yeah, we got the split dogs."
I want to talk about another horror part that I really like.
Please
and that
do.
is that the zombies are completely aware of what is going on and can communicate, which obviously physically not possible.
Also, they're fast. Did you notice that?
Yeah.
They run.
Oh, yeah. I love a fast zombie. Give me a fast zombie.
So I imagine you remember back when the remade Dawn of the Dead came out was 2003.
Love that
I
movie.
think
2004.
2004. Okay, well I was close, but anyway, I'm not the biggest fan of it because it's not my vibe. But there were a lot of people at that time who were just very, very upset about the idea of fast zombies, and it's like, oh, zombies. I'm like, motherfucker. You're claiming to be a zombie fan, and so one of two things is happening. Either you're claiming to be a huge zombie fan and you've somehow never seen 1985's The Return of the Living Dead, or maybe you don't know as much about zombies as you think you do. They be running all over this movie, Michelle. It's nuts.
Yeah.
I
love a running zombie.
And they talk.
It's
Send more paramedic. Like, they actually call more people in to eat their brains, and then
but I also like
more cops.
them talking. I like them talking about how they eat brains because it makes the pain stop because they can feel themselves rotting.
Yeah, that's fucked up.
So dark.
Well,
and even the way that they're constantly making more zombies by trying to get rid of the existing zombies and making everybody else experience what it feels like to feel yourself rot. It's horrifying. I like the horror in this.
Yeah, well, and I'm not sure how much research you would have done because we didn't chat about it before we recorded. But so this was written and directed by Dan O'Bannon. Dan O'Bannon also wrote Alien. He wrote John Carpenter's first feature film, Dark Star. There are a couple of other things that he wrote that are escaping me here as I try to remember things right off the top of my head. But the guy is fantastic writer and has just a beautiful sense of humor. Just did some fantastic things here. I love this movie. It's so great. But you're right. There are moments in here where like you could have played this differently, and it could have been and I think that's part of what makes it work so well, right? Is that at its core, it is still a good horror movie.
Oh yeah, I don't think that they should change anything to suit what I think a good comedy horror would be, because clearly this works for a lot of people.
Right.
But not my kind of comedy. I do
Sure.
love the horror though.
Well, and
And
I
now
mean,
that I know a little bit more about Dan O'Bannon, it's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. You did some pretty horrifying things in other movies, so of course
side note, by the
you
way,
did a good job in this one.
if you've never seen John Carpenter's first film, Dark Star, man, put that on your priority list. It's hilarious and weird. Again, another one that Dan O'Bannon wrote. It's a hell of a film.
I
Uh,
will give it a go, but IMDb says it's got a G rating, and I'm not okay with that. I don't think anything I watch that falls into
well,
at least some form of horror category should have a G rating.
having
Are you
seen
kidding me?
having seen the film myself, I wonder how that might change if it was re-rated. Anyway, it doesn't matter. We're
Oh, I
getting
know.
off
It
the
was the
point.
1974 standards. They had no
Sure.
concept of like
So,
MA and C17.
Michelle, tell me,
Hmm.
do you have some specific examples of things where, like, they went for something and you were just like, oh, swing and a miss?
I just, I was trying to think of like how I was going to describe it, but it really is the difference in our comedy types, where to me just like this like Abbott and Costello type act with those two bumbling medical warehouse workers is not my flavor, but I appreciate what they do,
Sure, sure.
if that makes sense. Just like two kind of like bumbling guys. Nothing I can really. I don't know. Maybe if it was like a Seth MacFarlane Family Guy thing, I would have liked it a lot more because he is top tier comedy. You know,
Yeah. You see, here's what's
you're not
happening
gonna
right now.
react to that statement at all.
No. Well, no.
Okay,
Look.
fair.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm not sure. I even entirely heard what you're saying, because here's what's happening right now, and this is curious because again, I do love this movie, but now I'm starting to think about all the different things in this movie that if you had played them straight, like how fun. Like imagine a fucking split dog, like just out of nowhere, just like a
I
fucking
know.
gross half a
Yes.
dog just starts fucking hobbling at you, or like the whole experience of those guys who accidentally kick open that barrel and the gas explodes in their face and they're fully conscious but they're dead and they're feeling the experience of death from the beginning, right? Like their bodies go
And rigor
cold.
mortis is setting in.
They gotta go
The guy's
through
trying to work out
rigor.
their
Like,
joints.
oh my
Yeah,
god.
it really is like
Yeah.
that stuff I focused on so hard because I think like the dog upset me. And I was like,
Oh
I don't find
sure.
this funny. I find this dark. And then the butterflies, I'm like, oh shit, it brings everything back from the
Here's what
dead.
Here's what I
Anything that
love
was
about the
once living.
What I love about the butterflies is they're just there. The characters in the scene never notice it,
Hmm.
right?
I
But
think
it's
that's why
like
it
this
stuck
little
with
hint
me
that
so
they
much.
drop. It's great.
Oh, it
Also,
is really, really smart.
Clu Gulager is in this movie, and he's great. He plays Bert. Did you catch the fake eye chart on the wall in the office that says something like Bert is a slave driver or something to that
No,
effect? Yeah,
no, I
it's
did not.
in the background in one of the offices. Yeah, it's pretty fantastic. Of course, the legendary Tarman zombie is in this. The one that actually came out of the canister that they broke open with the half melted face and all of that. Like the Tarman, people who have never even seen this movie have seen the Tarman. It's what was your thought on the Tarman, Michelle?
I was too busy thinking about that naked zombie lady and when she was coming back.
That's fair. And then of course
I don't
she
know how to answer your question, so we're just gonna
she
keep coming back to
that's
Linnea
fair.
quickly.
And she just comes fucking running at one point, right? Just fucking hauling ass.
No,
But
I'd seen the Tar Man, and I think that's why I had a different opinion of this going into it too. Is I thought this was going to be just like so ridiculous that the horror wasn't even there. Because Tar Man is the picture on IMDb, like
oh
everybody's seen
yeah,
him.
yeah,
But
yeah.
I definitely expected this to be so much schlockier than it was, because of that. So yeah, no scare for me, and
Well,
it didn't tick any boxes on the comedy thing. I'm sorry.
well, that's too bad because I
I
think
know.
this
We have
movie is
different senses of
hilarious.
comedy. I know. I
One
have Dad's
que-
sense of
one
humor, so it's
question,
good.
Frank. This guy's screaming in here. Are you sure he's a dead cadaver? Why don't you open the door and find out? No, it's all right, Frank. I'll take your word on that. It's just, I love it.
It's funnier when you do it, I guess.
I love it. It's so great. Do you
Yeah.
ever fantasize about being killed? That sequence where she's sitting there and just ranting for a little while before she ever even does the dance. I think I like that even more than the fucking dance sequence. It's so fucking ridiculous. And even that element of when she talks about like how this is what I think the most awful way to die would be, and then that's what happens. Like you could have played that like here's I know a lot of people don't like the idea of remakes. I kind of want somebody to do like it's Return of the Living Dead, except it's like played serious. I wonder if that would be a good fucking movie. I
Mm-hmm.
bet it would.
Yeah.
Well,
I got
anyway.
nothing else to add. I got through my notes. At this point, you can just keep talking
No,
about how much you love it, and I'll go,
I'm
uh-huh.
no,
Yeah.
I'm pretty much wrapped up here. This movie, I could just ramble and ramble for another hour and a half, but that's not necessary. It's fabulous. I mean, look, I'm not gonna lie. It is gonna affect how I feel about you going forward, but I mean,
Because I like horror more than I like comedy. But JD, let me ask you something. You ever
what
fantasize about dying?
about being killed,
about
Michelle?
about being
About being
killed
killed.
by an old man who's trying to eat you, but he's all gums, and he ain't got those teeth, so he's just gumming you to death. That's
By the way,
my
what
impression
the
of that lady.
what the eye chart in the background says is Bert is a slave driver and cheap son of a bitch who's going bald too. Ha ha. But it's set up to look like an eye test chart. It's
Yep.
fantastic. I love it.
I
Anyway,
completely
guys,
understand.
go check out Return of the Living Dead if you've never seen it. Seriously, this movie's friggin' fantastic. We're ending the year in a kind of a strong wave, Michelle. This one it was just dropped here today, and we got another one coming up tomorrow and another one coming up the day after. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm tired already.
I know, but it's important stuff.
Ugh.
Tomorrow,
Is anything
yeah,
I do important? I'm
I
full
think
of
so.
ennui.
No,
I've just been like, who wants to listen to
no,
me talk on a podcast about a
I
naked lady when
do,
they could just be
Michelle.
watching that naked lady?
Kyle does. That's why he asked us to do the episode, Michelle.
Hasn't sent me an Instagram message in months. I think they broke
Oh,
up.
Kyle. Get it together, buddy. Get it
JK
together.
Kyle,
Anyway,
I know it's purely platonic.
yeah.
Okay.
So I hope your husband knows it's purely platonic. Anyway,
Yeah. He's used to it.
tomorrow, we're actually getting an early jump this month, so we're doing it on the last day of the month. We're gonna have our monthly We Watch Stuff recap of stuff we saw that we didn't talk about on the regular episodes this month. I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't have a lot to talk about, but the few things I do have to talk about, I got some shit to say. And it's I'm looking forward to that one. And then on New Year's Day, we're dropping our best of 2023 episode. And it's gonna be a good
Hell
time.
yeah. And
Hell
I
yeah.
had to scrap my entire idea because JD was like, there is no structure to that. And I'm like, but I love the chaos. So
No, I mean,
I will be doing a Google blog.
I actually have an idea for that I was gonna suggest, but you didn't even give me a chance to. So maybe you're jumping the gun a little bit.
We had a discussion about categories weeks ago. Maybe
I
it
mean,
was yesterday. I don't remember.
it was more of a, hey, what kind of things are you doing? Like, would you want to do? Anyway, we don't need to have this discussion on the air. Guys, thank you for tuning in yet again and tolerating our weird shit. If there's anything you would like to hear us ramble about that's horror or horror adjacent, you know where to find us on the social medias and stuff. If not, listen to the guy at the end of the episode, who is also me, but recorded with some weird volume things. I'm going to have to record that thing again one of these days. But anyway, you guys know what it says. If you don't, stick around and find out. Say goodnight, Michelle.
Good night, Michelle.
We Watch Shudder is a production of Rat Factory Media, your home for all of today's Rat Factoryist podcasts. The views and opinions of the hosts and guests of We Watch Shudder are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of Rat Factory Media. But wait, aren't Rat Factory Media and We Watch Shudder the same people? Shut your cake hole, Charlie. Nobody asked you. We Watch Shudder is available free on all major podcast platforms, and the easiest way to support We Watch Shudder is also free. Just leave a rating and review on your platform of choice. Merge your consciousness with ours on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. We're at We Watch Shudder on all those social media platforms. Or find us the old-fashioned way, on the web at WeWatchShudder.com or by email at mail@WeWatchShudder.com. Heck, you can even leave us a voicemail at 701-566-9510. No, seriously, 701-566-9510. Try it if you dare.